Mayank, as I mentioned before, is the entertainment editor of Midday. He's been covering the world of cinema and entertainment for a very long time. He also has a very, very nice interview series called Sit with Hit List. Don't get that wrong. Sit with Hit List. So really nice to welcome you to this awards evening, Mayank. On a normal day, you probably would have been on the jury, but we wanted to have you as a special guest here.
Thank you for
So
having me.
thank you, Mayank.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
for joining us. So, Mayank, I just wanted to get a perspective from you on how what is the future of digitization of entertainment, and hopefully get a few fun Bollywood stories from you as well. My first question to you is that how do you see the acceleration of digitization of entertainment? COVID has completely changed the whole consumption and viewing of entertainment. So, how do you see that trend? What are your views on that trend?
Absolutely. I mean, I think what would have taken maybe 5 or 10 years longer has got accelerated in a matter of a year and a half, where a lot of people who did not, for instance, take to OTT platforms as their primary source of entertainment were essentially either consuming broadcast entertainment on television or going out to theaters. That gap where people are willing to subscribe to a particular OTT platform and watch it as their primary entertainment home, as almost a replacement to television, is something that would have happened. It was inevitable, but it's happened much quicker because there was that gap. When the lockdown happened, when there were no theaters, there was no network television either. So what do? You're sitting at home, you can't step out either. There were absolutely no other avenues for entertainment available. There was no socializing to be done, and all we had were our cell phones in our hands to keep us going. I have no idea how the last pandemic, which was back in 1918 to 1920, I don't know how people passed their time during their own lockdown, because it really saved us. I genuinely believe that a lot of the reason why we mentally survived, at least half sane, and although a lot of people crib about their screen time as they should, but we've kind of remained sane because we've consumed stories and great storytellers, and sort of involved ourselves out as that being our primary source of leisure and entertainment. So yes, I don't know. It's impossible to predict future because we are right in the middle of a massive change that has taken place already. And the reason why I say that is because there's one thing that you do because you have no option, but does that change your consumption habit permanently enough? But that's the only way you're likely to be. And that is a scare that the entertainment industry currently faces, because yes, sooner or later, touch wood, we will go back to that analog space of going into a theater and watching movies for our entertainment. But will we? We don't know. Some of the theaters have reopened. Are they getting footfalls? Not really. But is this a permanent situation? Is it a situation because not everyone is doubly vaccinated? Does it even make sense to risk yourself into an indoor space? Why, when you can actually catch everything online anyway? So I think the big fear from an entertainment industry point of view is how permanent has this change been? And are we going to look at it very differently? Which is not to say that it'll go one way or the other, but everyone's like really watching with their eyes open, and especially an industry that essentially has survived on theatrical footfalls. I mean, it's right before pandemic, while the explosion of OTTs did take place in India around 2016 onwards, where content was being created primarily for OTT platforms from subscription revenues that were earned or likely to be earned in the future by those platforms. But the fact also is that the theaters were doing exceedingly well. the performance of cinemas, whether it's a multiplex, and of course, single screen has its own long story that we can get onto later. But multiplexes, if you just look at their performance in 2019, was phenomenal. All of them posted massive profits. Their share values went up. People were going in for entertainment, even while they were watching other stuff in their homes or on their mobile phones. Or on their laptops. So the coexistence was there. Now, to what extent has the adoption led to a complete decimation of an industry is something that one has to wait and watch out for, because that's a shaving off of about 60% of a film's revenue, because that's what multiplexes and cinemas were bringing into the system. So while television was always there and OTTs were always there, now whether people are just not going to go to theaters is as I said, Parul, the big scare at the moment.
That's actually, it's a scary thought, for those of us who still like to see on the big screen. And I remember you saying at a previous event we had that it's the one thing that Indians from top to bottom take out money from their wallet and go and see that movie in the cinema. So that is something which it'd be sad to see that not happen in terms of a totally way of life for Indians. Films run in all our veins. The reels of films run in all our veins. So coming to our next question, Mayank, how has your own journey been? From being print to websites now on to video. How do you see your own journey as a journalist? And now it would be accurate to say journalist influencer.
But I'm actually in the business of content. And for me, it should not matter how it is consumed, so long as I'm able to adapt to the newer platforms that come in, and I'm able to express myself in the same way as I did before, except in multiple platforms. So in the same way, I think content creators per se don't need to worry so much, so long as they're willing, so long as they're in sync with what it is they want to say, how they want to say it in terms of which platform it appears in, which forms. That will always evolve, as it should, and it always has.
One story that you could have never done on print, and a recent story of yours?
I don't know. I don't think there has been see that there is that other thing, so far as journalists are concerned, what changes between a visual medium and a non-visual medium. And so it's not so much about print as much as about text and visual. Is that, for instance, I did a conversation right now, right before I came here, with Leander Pace, right? And it's a 30-minute conversation where he's before me on a screen, and it's a challenge with the screen or with the visual medium is when I switch on a camera, whether you like it or not, you will start acting. We tend to pose when the camera is on, right? If I take a regular camera in front of you, you will make a face, which is which is your camera face. Or when the camera is on, there are certain things you will say in a certain way, which is because you're conscious of the camera before you. Whereas if I'm sitting in a room for hours with Leander Pace, the story I will derive out of that. There are certain things he will say, there are certain lines he will throw, there are certain things he will do that add color to a copy, right? Which will not happen if it's before a camera or even before a zoom lens. So that differentiation is actually between text and visual far more than which platform that appears in.
According to you, who are the digitally savvy, Bollywood stars? And you can't say Karan Johar because he's like I think an industry in himself. So, but according to you, who are the stars or the filmmakers or the directors who you think really understand the shift very well?
I think it really becomes more about what is it that you're putting out rather than simply the numbers that you garner in the process, right? And that becomes a defining, or will become a defining thing over time. To answer your question, I'm quite fascinated by people who I would not have seen in the space around me, because mainstream media tends to only concentrate on the stars of the day. But like someone like a Ranjit, who used to be a 70s villain, right? And I mean, watching his Instagram really excites me because that's, he brings you into another world. I mean, people have forgotten Ranjit, and here he is, his name is Goli, and he's doing things, or for that matter, even a Baba Sehgal. I mean, he would not got any traction so much in mainstream space if he wasn't doing something to. So it gives a lot of people that the gatekeepers of mainstream media would have wiped out in the past. It gives them, to create an avenue for themselves to find some relevance in the world they live in, and the relevance can be nostalgia sometimes.
And probably Rishi Kapoor, when the late Rishi Kapoor, the late great Rishi Kapoor, his
Absolutely.
Twitter stream was a scream, an absolute scream.
Absolutely. Or for that matter, even a Nina Gupta, right? What a
Yeah.
what a fabulous story. She wakes up one day and she just puts out what would be a LinkedIn post on her Instagram saying, "Hey, I need work." And then she's just had a completely, for the first time in her life, at the age of 60, she was a lead in a film. She had never been lead in a movie. And who made that happen? People on social media. They went berserk. They thought of her. They looked back at stuff that she's done. There were filmmakers who saw and then thought of her, and that's it. She's had a new wave in her career at the moment, including a whole show which is just about her, which is a quasi fiction, that was Masaba. So I think that is the more fascinating part of social media, rather than the same people who anyway were getting all the attention. They and I think we were saturated with all that attention anyway.